Hey guys, Jenna here. Welcome to my channel where I take you on tours of unique houses and share the stories behind the owners that call them home. In every neighborhood, there's that one house that just turns heads. It's the house that everybody's curious about. Well, in today's video, I'm going to show you perhaps the most colorful home in the entire country. And it belongs to a woman who's famous online for making incredible sweaters. Katwise is going to open the doors to her eclectic home and take us on a tour of this amazing space that actually matches her personality. This home has been her labor of love, and you can just tell that she loves every single inch of it. But my favorite part is the sentiment that she leaves us with at the end of this video, so make sure to watch all the way through so that you can hear it. And if you like these kind of videos, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you'll know every time I post a new video. Hello, I'm Katwise, and this is my home, Calico, in the Hudson Valley. Before starting my life as a crazy homeowner, I spent 15 years just hitchhiking all over the world. So I went to about 100 different countries, and before that, I followed the Grateful Dead. So I became fluent in school buses and living out in the woods and weird alternative lifestyle stuff. Years and years, I never spent more than 3 months in one place. And then finally 12 years ago, I was like, I want to get a house, and just kind of landed here and exploded. And so we found this super charming 1840s farmhouse. And when I say charming, I mean like potential to be charming, because it was kind of neglected and we were super naive, and I think only a naive person would embark on this journey, because as most people told us afterwards, the house was probably in a state where it should have been torn down. But we didn't know that, so we just started fixing it. This house consists of the main 1840s farmhouse, which has a bunch of bedrooms and additions and little nooks. And then behind it, there's a barn where I keep my school bus. And behind the barn, we have a little stage and a green room, and the green room's super cute. It's where guests stay, especially during COVID, where people couldn't stay in the house. They would go stay in the purple barn. Behind that, up on a hill, there's this really cool, tiny post and beam rainbow house that was some rich person's chicken coop, and I found it on Craigslist and painted it rainbow. But it is so cute. It's got all cute old, like, wavy glass windows. It's just so precious, and it's only 10 feet by 10 feet, but it's 2 stories high. And when I'm in there, I'm like, this is all I need. I should get 3 of these. They're so great. I get confused between being like, I don't need anything, so give me lots of it. And I have my big bus, which I lived in Santa Cruz for a long time and took out the Burning Man and stuff in the 90s. So for years and years when I was traveling, especially with the Grateful Dead, I would make patchwork clothes and sell them at the concert. So that's always been what I've done. Even though I went to college, like, I still just make patchwork clothes. It's funny. I should have just never gone to college, I guess. Somebody's like, have you heard of this site called Etsy? Which was this brand new website, and I got super lucky and was one of the first shops to open up there. So even though I still don't know very much about internet marketing or photographs or any of that, but because I was an early adapter, my shop got really popular, and I was able to leave New York City and leave the big crowds and move up into the woods and just sew. So I have my little studio up in the attic, and those sweaters are like the little engine that pays for all of this. And so for me, I sometimes call this the house that sweaters built, because if it weren't for Etsy and if it weren't for my sweaters, like, there's no way we could have afforded all the repairs on it. This is the kitchen, which is always one of the most important rooms of the house where people hang out. So I wanted to make it the most soothing color, and everything is vintage, mid-century seafoam green. It started with this little toaster I had, and it spread like a contagion, and then all of the furniture just turned seafoam. My house is so rainbow and chaotic that I wanted one room that was all one soothing color. Here's our little sunny breakfast nook. So when we moved up here from Brooklyn 12 years ago, we looked at so many properties, and one of the things that made us really fall in love with this specific one is because there was a woman who had lived here for 60 years and raised her children here, and they had all grown and left, and she was still here. And as a memory of her, we left this wall here where she had measured all her children back from like the 1960s onward. And then when our friends visit, we put them on the wall too. All of our friends are tall though, so they're all up here. But this is like this treasure that we will never paint over. I feel so fortunate to have inherited this house from such a wonderful family. So I drink my coffee in the morning and I look at this beautiful portrait of Blanche Devereaux from the Golden Girls. She's made out of garbage and she's my pride and joy. Sometimes I think if the house burned down, this is what I would clutch and run out of the house with, although it would probably just all melt. One of my favorite little corners of the house is this hallway down to the basement. It looks all country kitsch here, but you open the door and it's like, whoa, psychedelic 60s blacklight hallway. So when we put the fish tank in, I thought that it was amazing that I found this fish tank for like $100, but we ended up like collapsing the whole wall and the foundation and having to put in steel I-beams and porous slab, and we ended up with this new hallway. And a little guest nook here, which I decorated in a way that I personally find lovely, but according to the people on Instagram, it would be really creepy to sleep here. Here is the bathroom, which started out just as plain, boring white, and eventually grew some plants and a little bit of stained glass. A lamp made by Ricky Boscarino of Luna Park, one of my prized possessions. So much of the house is so crazy that we just want to keep the bathroom kind of calm and clean feeling. So the kitchen is kind of the main thoroughfare between the front of the house and the back gardens. And then on the left of the staircase is my very favorite special yoga room. I took all the furniture out of this room and covered it in mirrors. And this is where I come every morning and do my yoga. Another one of my prized possessions is the Miss Pac-Man machine, which just broke, or else I'd show you how great I am at it. That's a lie, I'm really bad at it. This room we call the gentleman's quarters. In the winter, it's lovely to have the fire going, and we have a pull-down screen, and this is where we watch movies, and this is just like the cozy, warm, snuggly room with other guest beds. So this room is the one that's the most autobiographical to me, because when I look around, I see all the different fabrics and things I brought home from my travels. So there's Indian saris and Ecuadorian velvet and Turkish curtains and just all sorts of things that remind me what my life was like before I got this crazy house and got the ball and chain put around me. I love having the map of the world. I just sit here and stare at it. And then we have another room that's kind of special. It's my boyfriend's room because he's very indulgent about letting me do all these stupid decorations. So he has his special little corner of the house where I'm not really allowed. And so ta-da, it's the secret room. It's his little man library. So my boyfriend's a musician and he likes to sit in here and play his banjo and sing, and he is a science fiction nerd. He's got all his precious books. And then in here, he has the scotch. My favorite thing about this room are these crazy walls which came from a church, and I just saw them on Craigslist one day. It was like church door, and so I went down and got it from some super sketchy mattress warehouse in Paramus, and they fit exactly perfectly in this room, and I love it because it makes it feel like this is some regal old like Hogwarts library. So that's most of the downstairs. Now I'll show you upstairs, which is more of my world. I painted the staircase like an optical illusion. It's kind of a tripping hazard. So I put this bar at the bottom so that when I fall, I just like grab onto it and swing. So far, no one's gotten hurt. Here's some more stained glass windows. They came from the mansion of the man who wrote Frosty the Snowman. I got them on Craigslist. And this is my bedroom over here. We call it the Sky Lounge because when everything in the house felt so crazy, I just made something that was a little calmer. The bed is made all out of old architectural salvage stuff that we kind of pieced together. I always wanted a canopy bed when I was little, so I finally, after years of living in my backpack and sleeping wherever, I finally landed and got my own bed and built it all like a beautiful, like a chariot to dreamland. And another thing I do whenever I see some dejected stuffed animal, I want to like save them and bring them home to my little orphanage for like sad animals, but I mean, I'm still kind of sad. She doesn't appreciate everything I've done for her. Now coming this way is my studio where I sew my sweaters. As I mentioned before, to make my sweaters, I go to millions of thrift stores constantly, and one of the things that happens when you go to thrift stores all the time is you start collecting stuff. So I started collecting needle points, and it's fun to have a place to display all of them. Like every single one of them's kind of ugly, but when you put them all together, they're sort of magical. And this is where I sew. I take sweaters and I cut them up and I make new sweaters out of them, and I sell them on Etsy. So I spend hours and hours and hours a day here at my serger just cutting and sewing sweaters. This is the sort of thing I make. This is old like fisherman sweaters from the Aran Islands and stuff, and so they're pretty thick and chunky and warm wool, and then I cut them up and sew them all together and make these big twirly fancy coats and put trim on them and stuff. I also make simpler hoodies and gloves, and I sell them on Etsy. Everything I make, I stand here in front of these mirrors and I pin it to myself, and I spend a lot of time here with a mouthful of pins. This little machine is what paid for all of this. I was a vagabond and I somehow I won the art lottery and got a really successful Etsy shop. And so I just make sweaters and turn the sweaters into house. And it's all because of this machine. Like I put a little face on it. It's like me and this silly machine are best friends. This is the room. Normally it's like full of sweaters, but the sweaters come in and out like the tide. And at this moment, it happens to be very clean. It's like this light zen. I really like empty rooms. I feel like I'm always doing my best to get rid of as much furniture and stuff, but I keep collecting more. But I'm like, in my heart, I yearn for like clear, open, uncluttered spaces. Most people don't realize that about me. They think that I just want lots of rainbows and stuff, but I actually really like clear, clean, crisp lines, just with a lot of colors on them. Last year we had a tornado that crushed a bunch of the house, and as a result of repairing it, I got this whole wall of windows with a balcony, which is a life changer. It's so nice to have a balcony, but it's a really nice place to do yoga or to sleep or to just stand up and survey the land. One thing about having a house like this is that you're never done. Like everywhere I look, I just see things I want to improve. My biggest plan is to learn how to just appreciate it in the moment, in the phase it's in, instead of always looking at it like a project. There are days where I'm like, ooh, I'm gonna put a swimming pool here and build an addition and then put a tower, and then I'll get those tunnels I needed to connect to the outbuildings, and then there'll be like a treehouse village and a water slide. And then other times I'm like, maybe I should just sell it and live in a condo. It can be really overwhelming maintaining this, so I do have a fantasy alternate future of like extreme minimalism. One of the things that makes it tolerable to have all this is that I know I'd be fine with none of it, because actually this has nothing to do with happiness. The happiness is in you. I'm just enjoying this, and I know if I lost it all, knock on wood, I don't want to lose it, but if I did, I'd be free.
Thanks for watching this week's video. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you soon with another unique home tour.